From WFIU in Bloomington, Indiana, I'm Kate Young, and this is Earth Eats.
And a man on his way to work hops twice to reach at last his fig, which he smiles at and calls baby. Come here, baby, he says, and blows a kiss to the tree.
This week on the show, in honor of WFIU's 75th anniversary, we revisit a collection of favorite stories from the Earth Eats archive. We explore connections between food, fine art, and memory with artist Mollie Douthit. We have 2 stories celebrating fig trees and a recipe for making pita bread using spelt flour. Plus, a story from Harvest Public Media's series focused on local food. That's all just ahead. Stay with us. Thanks for listening to Earth Eats. I'm Kate Young. When you plant a fruit tree, you can't help but look to the future. Sometimes way in the future. It usually takes years for a fruit tree to provide. Orchardists are in this for the long haul. Ann Schertz said she hadn't thought too far ahead when she purchased her fig tree 6 years ago.
I bought it from May's Greenhouse.
She says it was an impulse buy.
But I was inspired by the Bloomington Community Orchard when I saw their fig and how big it had grown and that it was producing figs. I thought, I want one of those. It's a Chicago fig.
Chicago hardy, is that just terminology or?
I think you're right.
Okay.
I thought if it could survive in Chicago, then it would probably do pretty well in Bloomington, Indiana.
Ann Schertz lives with her husband, Alan Schertz, in the Bryan Park neighborhood in central Bloomington. We used to be neighbors. She's a professional photographer, and he works for the city of Bloomington. They have a lot of other interests, like baking, building, gardening. You might catch Alan gliding across campus on a longboard in the summer, or the 2 of them walking their little dog, McGee, in the neighborhood. Oh, and you might say they're foodies. So maybe we could do like a levels check. Just tell me what you had for breakfast.
Today we had crepes with Gruyere cheese, sauteed mushrooms, spinach, and eggs.
It was pretty nice. Yeah, I appreciated it.
That is definitely the best "what did you have for breakfast that I've ever gotten. I invited them on the show to talk about their fig tree. I started by asking them, why figs?
I think Ann has always wanted if we're choosing a plant, Ann would lean towards something that would produce food, and the fig leaves are beautiful, so it's quite pleasant to look at, and it is really fun to eat figs.
I think also because it seemed a little exotic and like something that I never thought we could grow in Indiana. And then once I learned that we could, I was really excited about planting something in my yard that I could look forward to picking every year.
I know a couple of other people in town with fig trees, but Ann and Alan's is the biggest, and it bears the most fruit. Their house lies along a familiar route through town for me, and the tree is in their side yard, right next to the road, so I pass it almost daily. A few years ago in the winter, I noticed they'd built a sort of circular cage around it, with light wire fencing, and filled it in with dried leaves. Each year, the cage got bigger as the tree grew. Last year, they had it decorated with Christmas lights.
Our neighbor bought us Christmas lights to put on it.
I thought it looked like a cake.
So it looks like a big cake at Christmas.
I wanted to learn their secret to fig tree success. I stopped by in the fall, when they were getting it ready for winter, and asked them to describe the process. When I arrived, they'd already set up a circular cage around the tree using stakes and lightweight wire fencing. They had started to fill it in with dried leaves, and were dragging a tarp down the side of the road to a pecan tree on their corner.
Sure, we got lucky and we found about somebody who had bagged up about a dozen bags of leaves.
My old professor.
Giant bags, and so we just sent him an email and asked him if we could have his leaves.
That saves time.
Yeah, especially when we're kind of in a pinch. It's cold so early this year.
They try to get it covered before the first frost, or at least the first hard freeze. This year's first cold snap came early. Many of the leaves hadn't even fallen off the trees yet, so they were happy for any leaves they could get their hands on. They dragged the tarp to the cage and started dumping in the leaves. What is the method here? Do you just dump it in there, or are you trying to get a specific, do you want to make sure it's packed dense, or?
I would say packed loose. Like you can see I have a little void there.
Yeah.
So my quality control is quite not up to snuff. But
Well, you probably want to trap some air in there too.
yes, I think that's right. I think the first year we did it, we did not use straw. Maybe year 2 or 3, we did use straw at the base. And I think that's a good thing. I did not use straw at the base of this one. So we'll see. But again, I am no expert. We are just winging it, you know what I mean?
Yeah. We're pretty loose.
It's kind of more like a ritual.
Yeah.
It's a ritual that seems to work. What I've noticed from other friends' fig trees is that in our climate, certain varieties of fig trees will survive the winter, but they die back quite a bit, and each spring it takes a while to recover and send out new growth. As a result, the tree doesn't get that much bigger from year to year. That's not the case with Ann and Alan's tree.
And so what is the purpose of putting a cage around it and packing it with leaves? Like, what is your intention with that? What do you think it's doing?
I guess we're thinking it's insulating it. I don't really know if it is. Like, we've never studied it, or we don't really know what we're doing, but we just keep doing it each year and it keeps producing. So
Well, I think I read to do that, and that it would help protect it from a hard freeze.
okay.
So it seems to have worked, though. I mean, every year we get about twice as many figs as we did the year before. And this year we got, I think, somewhere in the ballpark of 200 figs.
200 figs, that's quite a bit. And so do they come on all at once, or is it just sort of throughout the season?
Yeah, gradually.
Yeah, it usually starts out with just 1 or 2. You have to really keep looking for them because the fig's so big now that you really have to get in there and see where the figs are and make sure you don't miss any of those delicious figs on that.
So speaking of delicious, what kind of things do you guys like to do with them, since you have an abundant harvest? This isn't just like 1 or 2 a day.
Unfortunately, I think we mainly just eat them raw. I mean, like, or when they ripen. But we've sautéed them.
Saute them in butter and maple syrup, and very lightly, because you don't need to use very much because they're already a pretty sweet fruit. So we cut them up and then we'll eat them with pancakes and waffles or on ice cream.
Or even yogurt. We've had like a fig yogurt parfait, little granola, little yogurt, little figgy.
And sometimes we've taken them to a friend of ours' house and we've put them on pizza too, with goat cheese.
Oh, yeah, I forgot. We did.
It's very good.
Have you ever preserved them, like by making jam or dried them or anything?
We haven't gotten to that point where we have so many that we would do that. We mostly gobble them down just as they are.
Do you give them away to friends and neighbors?
By all means.
We do, because we want other people to experience the fig. They often have never had a fig.
Especially a fresh one.
Yes, and they thought that, like, we have neighbors from Israel, and they thought that they could only get them in Israel as far as, growing them in the vicinity where they lived. So that was exciting to them to know that that was a possibility.
That it is a nice invitational, like, I don't know what you call it, like fellowship sharing thing. So it's a nice element as far as that goes, I think.
It's actually happened with people driving by too, because I think people are curious when we're standing by it, wondering what we're doing, because they don't recognize it as something that would be bearing fruit. So they're curious and they ask us what we're doing, and we're basically almost getting inside the fig and trying to find the figs in there. So
I think some people have never had a fresh fig, and then I especially think people don't know what a fig tree looks like. So all of that would mean people would be curious.
absolutely. Although there are some people who think, no, I'm not eating that. It looks weird. But then they slice it open and it's pink. It's gorgeous on the inside. It looks kind of like a little ugly fruit on the outside, but you open it up and it's pink and beautiful and delicious.
Yeah, so what does the outside look like?
Outside color is initially green and then kind of turns brownish, almost kind of like a purpley bruised color when it's starting to ripen.
Do you think anybody's
No.
picking? Because I know that your fig it's outside of your backyard fence.
Yeah.
It's
It is
very
accessible.
it's very open to the community.
There's many individuals that we've said, by all means, help yourself. But I also think there's kind of like a respect that they're not going to just come and harvest all of them or anything. You know what I mean? It's just like a...
You said squirrels. What about deer? I know that this neighborhood is just overrun with deer sometimes.
Yeah, there's a lot of deer, but I don't think I've ever seen a deer chomping on the fig. Not for the leaves, not for the fruit.
Either they don't like figs or they have not discovered them.
Yeah. I guess that could
My guess would be the latter. They haven't discovered them because they will like them.
I think for me, mostly it's just nice to have something out in the yard that grows and then I can pick the food and eat it. I don't feel like I'm being that resourceful, but it's just a fun thing to have in my life to be able to do that. I don't know. I guess what I am learning is to try to grow things that grow easily in Indiana. I have tried to grow lots of fruits that don't necessarily do that well in Indiana. And so to find something that does well, it pretty much takes care of itself besides covering it up in the winter. It just really brings me a lot of joy.
It's definitely fun. I think the fellowship of the tree has been a highlight for me. Just interacting with neighbors, kids, grown-ups.
As is often the case, fruit from their fig tree is more than food. It's a conversation starter, a connector.
This story is from 2019. The fig tree is alive and well, and Alan has retired from his work at the city. Ross Gay is a poet, essayist, and English professor at Indiana University. He loves a fig tree. All sorts of trees, really, but especially fruit trees. Back in 2020, in the summer, when we were all in the thick of the COVID-19 pandemic, I asked Ross to read a poem about a fig tree from his collection, Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude. I recorded this in his backyard garden.
To the fig tree on 9th and Christian. Tumbling through the city in my mind without once looking up, the racket in the lug work, probably rehearsing some stupid thing I said or did, some crime or other. The city, they say, is a lonely place until, yes, the sound of sweeping, and a woman, yes, with a broom beneath which you are now too, the canopy of a fig, its arms pulling the September sun to it, and she has a hose, too, and so works hard rinsing and scrubbing the walk, lest some poor sod slip on the silk of a fig and break his hip, and not probably reach over to gobble up the perpetrator. The light catches the veins in her hands when I ask about the tree. They flutter in the air, and she says, "Take as much as you can. Help me, please." So I load my pockets and mouth, and she points to the stepladder against the wall to mean more, but I was without a sack, so my meager plunder would have to suffice. And an old woman whom gravity was pulling into the earth loosed one from a low-slung branch, and its eye wept like hers, which she dabbed with a kerchief as she cleaved the fig with what remained of her teeth. And soon there were 8 or 9 people gathered beneath the tree, looking into it like a constellation, pointing. Do you see it? And I am tall, and so good for these things. And a bald man even told me so when I grabbed 3 or 4 for him, reaching into the giddy throngs of yellow jackets, Sugarstone, which he only pointed to, smiling and rubbing his stomach. I mean, he was really rubbing his stomach, like there was a baby in there. It was hot. His head shone while he offered recipes to the group using words which I couldn't understand. And besides, I was a little tipsy on the dance of the velvety heart rolling in my mouth, pulling me down and down into the oldest countries of my body, where I ate my first fig from the hand of a man who escaped his country by swimming through the night, and maybe never said more than 5 words to me at once, but gave me figs. And a man on his way to work hops twice to reach at last his fig, which he smiles at and calls baby. Come here, baby, he says, and blows a kiss to the tree, which everyone knows cannot grow this far north, being Mediterranean and favoring the rocky, sun-baked soils of Jordan and Sicily. But no one told the fig tree or the immigrants. There's a way the fig tree grows in groves. It wants, it seems, to hold us. Yes, I am anthropomorphizing, goddammit. I have twice in the last 30 seconds rubbed my sweaty forearm into someone else's sweaty shoulder, gleeful, eating out of each other's hands on Christian Street in Philadelphia, a city like most, which has murdered its own people. This is true. We are feeding each other from a tree at the corner of Christian and Ninth. Strangers maybe never again.
That was Ross Gay reading To the Fig Tree on Ninth and Christian from his poetry collection, Catalog of Unabashed Gratitude. Ross Gay is the author of 3 essay collections, The Book of Delights, a New York Times bestseller released in 2019, Inciting Joy, released in 2022, and his newest collection, The Book of More Delights, released in September of 2023. His book-length poem, Beholding, was released in 2020. We'll be back after a short break. Stay with us. Mollie Douthit is a professional artist. She's a painter. She currently lives in Grand Forks, North Dakota, with her parents. She teaches art at a local middle school. Mollie says it wouldn't be Christmas without the Kiss cookie. Her mom makes it every year. But Mollie admits it isn't her favorite. We agree that the chocolate to cookie ratio is a bit off. So she painted it. One tiny dab of peanut butter dough with a Hershey's Kiss on top, nestled neatly in the divot of the crackled cookie. And then she sent that little 1/4-inch image of the cookie to me, mounted on a card with a holiday greeting. It might possibly be the best Christmas card ever created. And it reminded me of our conversation in November about paint and food and memory and connection with the people we love. I started by asking Mollie how she got started painting food and kitchen spaces.
So I had an exhibition in 2017 at the museum in my hometown. And I was really struggling with how to build work for the show. And I think I was trying to find my voice as a painter and figure out things. And I think as you're searching for your artistic voice, you're not looking in the right places. I got frustrated in my studio that was not close to my house, and I brought my easel home, I set it up, and I started painting my kitchen, just whatever was happening, and it would be like milk jugs or whatever. And I've always gravitated towards food as a subject matter, but it really exploded with that work. My grandparents owned a restaurant when I was growing up, and it was a steakhouse, and they actually lived at the restaurant. So it was like me sort of like talking to my family through this medium that means so much to me. And I think that's really, it defined why I'd been painting food so much in the past, and it liberated me into like continuing that as like a subject matter that's quite central.
So you weren't living near your family at that time?
No, I actually did my master's in Ireland, and then I was able to stay in Ireland, and I was a painter there for many years. And then in 2017, I just decided it coincided with the show, and just for a few reasons, I thought it was about time that I come home.
So can you talk a little bit about your current living situation and where you paint and what that looks like?
So right now I live with my family, it's really nice. And I've embraced the mobile studio. I have an afternoon job, which is really convenient. So when my parents go to work, I typically like make myself a really nice breakfast. And then I have an easel that I bring upstairs. And, you know, the kitchen is one of those spaces that it typically doesn't have carpet. And in our house, it's the only place that doesn't have carpet. So it's where I feel safest to put that easel. And next thing I know, I'm looking around and I'm learning that your life is always in sort of transition. Like things can always change. My hometown went through a flood. So that losing your objects, but still knowing why they're important to you is a way for me to connect through painting. So knowing that I might be leaving this space, you know, probably moving out at some point, it really has helped me surface a lot of subject matter, like a recipe book that my mom has had for years, and being able to really spend time with that. And through painting just gives me patience to sit and look and find those colors and sort of, you know, I really love the cream against like a red and actually getting to create that. So that's my setup right now, is just setting up in the kitchen mainly and finding.
So when you're talking about exploring your mom's recipe book, you're not talking about cooking from it, you're talking about painting it.
Absolutely. My family and I have slightly different eating habits, and it's kind of like my bridge into their still talking about the things, about how much I love them and about how much these objects mean to me, and how much, even though I don't eat her apple pork chops anymore, the book that contains that recipe still means something to me.
I've been really interested in the way that food is related to memory and the way that food connects people. I just wonder if you could say anything about what you think about food and its power to connect, or its power to kind of jar memory.
Yeah, absolutely. Even before the paintings really took off as like, this is my thing, I think in grad school I had made this painting of Ritter Sport, which is a chocolate from Germany, and it brings back a lot of memories of a very good friend that I have in Germany and our love for Ritter Sport. But I painted this painting, and then the title is Not the Greatest. I suppose that's the point. And the title is referencing the fact that this is like, Ritter Sport is very good chocolate, but it's regular chocolate. But I'd rather eat that chocolate than a new chocolate that's more swanky, because Ritter Sport brings me back to a better place than swanky chocolate. And I think that's the power that food has over us, and it can be a very good power, especially when you're in times of needing a piece of Ritter Sport.
And you had talked about when you first discovered your interest in painting kitchens and places where food is prepared and food itself, that it was a way for you to connect across distance and time to your grandparents and their restaurant and your family's relationship with food.
Yeah, definitely. I'm just thinking of all of the things over the years that maybe I've painted that even, you know, I remember a clove of garlic, and That's the other thing too, is the beauty of cooking your own food is that you're involved in the process, and there's such joy in making something that you're going to eat. You know, I'm not painting from photos. I'm sitting with these pieces of food and I'm smelling them, and food it's such a connector. And I do think that maybe when my eating habits changed, as far as leading more of a like plant-based vegetarian lifestyle, it still remained a way that I could express something to people. This summer I was able to, or I guess this fall, paint my dad's birthday cake, which was just German chocolate, which my grandma, that was your birthday cake every year, no matter who you were. She made German chocolate cake. And I still eat that. And it's, yeah, the taste of that brings me back to her. I remember in high school coming home and like watching Mario Batali, aside from everything we know now, but and sort of just watching him walk through Italy, you know, discovering and just being so connected to simplicity in food. And I think that's the beauty of connecting with a raw material, and that's also what painting is. You know, you're just dealing with oil and stone that's been ground into a paste. Well, that's pesto. You know, it's like that's just taking one thing and touching it in a way that can all of a sudden transform it. Look around your kitchen. There's weird stuff that happens, and at least maybe in my family there it is. But you know, someone decided to clean our kitchen. Well, not someone, obviously one of the 3 people who live there decided to clean the kitchen. The kitchen gets cleaned, and you know when you're cleaning and you kind of like put something somewhere because you're going to take care of it in a minute because you're just wiping something down. I'm assuming that's what happened. But like 3 tablespoons of butter, still in the package, got put in the water dispenser for like in a fridge where you would put your glass to like get water automatically. Put it in the tray. And it sat there. And it was kind of, at first I was like, oh, I should put that away. And then it was a moment of, I think I'm just going to wait and see who's going to take care of it first. And it sort of became this mind game. And then I was like, it's sort of like leaving just a little bit of milk in a jug. And then, you know, and that's what I call a paintable moment, is like, that's, I don't know, had I not painted that, I don't know if I would have remembered it. And it's funny. It's so funny. But then for me, like, it's so exciting to build the yellow, like buttery yellow can be a very challenging color to make, but accomplishing that was a lot of fun. Cakes are like something that I really like to paint, and my mom is really big on kind of birthday cakes. That's always sort of an event with us. And so I wanted to make her birthday cake really nice for her. And coconut is one of those flavors that people are either like passionate or not passionate about. She likes it. So I was like, I'm going to put coconut on her cake this year. And so I painted it, and then I tried to do this really nice pink frosting, but it didn't look very good. Anyhow, I put the cake in the... Oh, sorry.
Wait, you painted it or you made it?
Oh, sorry. I made it. And then we ate some of it. And then it went into a fridge. And then I opened up the fridge door, and we have a couple fridges in our house. And this was the basement fridge, so it's quite empty. And I opened it up, and it was like this white empty fridge with a white cake, because she likes white cake. And I used a 7-minute frosting, and then this like bright pink. And it was like these kind of like, there's 3 different whites happening there, plus then like this pop of pink. And I think painting this is my opportunity to only talk about those colors. And then somehow the lusciousness of the frosting, the cakiness of the cake, the smoothness of the plastic in that refrigerator, all like somehow mingle themselves into that. And that's exciting to me. Yeah.
What about the time that you were painting watermelon in your kitchen?
Oh, yeah. There were like baby watermelons for sale. Brought one home and I cut it up and I put it in a bowl, and the bowl happened to be like bright green. And then all of the watermelons these days are seedless, so it didn't have seeds. And then I had just put it on the stovetop, and the stove was black. And I kind of looked down and I was like, oh my God, the bowl is green, that's its rind. And then the stovetop was black. And it was really exciting because I thought, wow, I've completed the watermelon. And then, again, that's where I get that opportunity to talk about when you can make like bright pink, opaque bright pink, and then find slightly darker maroonish red that adds depth. It's like, I don't know, I kind of freak out, especially when you're putting it on. And then once you know, put it on the surface of the canvas and you're like, well, that moment's over, moving on onto the green. Yeah. I just get this like nudge in me and I'm like, okay, like I have to paint. And there was actually one Sunday when my niece was over who was teething. My brother-in-law, my sister were there. Mom's making spaghetti and it's Sunday and the house is full and it's hot. And I was inspired. And I think, bless their souls, they didn't mind. And I set up in the kitchen and I was painting it. And my parents, most everyone knows not to talk to me when I'm painting, you know, super concentrated. And then like kind of afterwards, my mom comes up to me and she's like, that was brilliant. You know, like 5 minutes ago, I thought, I don't know what she's doing. Because she saw it sort of like midway through. She's like, you really kind of pulled that one off, didn't you? I was like, and this is why no one's allowed to talk to me when I'm painting. I don't need peanut galleries.
That's great, though. Even though they couldn't talk to you, you were sort of integrated into the moment of the family, and they got to watch your process, even if they couldn't interact directly.
Yeah, absolutely.
After a quick break, we'll return to my conversation with Mollie Douthit. She has a story about a TV tray, a placemat, and the power of paint to invoke emotions of gratitude and shared history. I'm Kate Young, and you're listening to Earth Eats. Among the many things that families can disagree about, it seems food can stir up some deep divisions. After all, food is tied to culture and identity. Many of us leave home and strike out on new culinary paths, develop new food preferences, restrictions, or even principles about what we will and will not eat. A place where we may have once come together, the family table, can become fragmented and tense. Our guest, Mollie Douthit, a painter, returned to her family home after living abroad for years. Many things had changed, including Mollie's diet. But she's found ways to continue to connect with her family over food, even if they aren't always eating the same thing.
You mentioned that you had gone through a rough patch recently.
Yeah, moving home, I had a lot of probably culture shock and just like shift in like what was happening in my life and where I was going, and a lot of questions. And I think luckily I was living with my family. There was a point where I was eating dinner like in front of my mom every night, like just really upset about life and about things. And I was, you know, and I'd sit in the living room. Actually, I'd bring my dinner out there and I'd sit there and I'd just be like a pile. And that went on for months. And then when I sort of started to come out of that, I made this painting of it's a terrible painting. It's pretty crappy. It's of this couch. And then we have those like little TV trays, and it has a TV tray on it with a placemat. And now I look, and this is how painting, like, this is why I paint. I look at that painting and the entire thing is like a weird shade of gray, except for the placemat. And what I'm thinking of is the fact that, like, this woman sat across from me and, like, knew that I was going to come out of whatever I've been in and was patient enough, because I didn't think that was going to happen. So it has nothing even to do with, like, I was making my food, but it was about sharing a moment with someone. And I'm so, so, so grateful to be home, to have come out of that. And that's why I want to celebrate the things that we do share, even if it's just the outside of a recipe book.
You mean the things you share with your parents?
Yeah. And those things that I grew up with, and those things that have really grounded me since coming home. This is still here, and you're okay with the thing. Kind of like finding sameness is sometimes like a really way to help cope. Yeah.
That interview with oil painter Mollie Douthit was recorded in 2018. She no longer lives in her parents' home in Grand Forks, North Dakota. Since 2012, Mollie has resided between Ireland and the U.S. and is now based in Sweden. You can find links to her work at eartheats.org. I'm Kate Young, this is Earth Eats, and we're back with Eric Shedler of Muddy Fork Bakery. We're making pita bread today using Muddy Fork's freshly ground spelt flour.
Here we have pita dough, which has been going for a few hours. It's very puffy. Bubbly. It has a nice grainy, fermenty smell to it. It's a little sticky looking. I'll put some flour on the table and pull it out with my bowl scraper. Maybe a little heavier on the flour than some of the other ones because it's a wetter dough. And we're going to cut this into 4-ounce pieces for our pitas. I want to just make sure it's not stuck to the table, so I'm going to slide it around on some flour, let it pick up a little bit of that on the bottom side. And then I'll cut with my bench scraper.
If you're not familiar with a bench scraper, it's an essential tool for many bakers. It's basically a wide, flat blade, a rectangle with a handle running the length of one side of the rectangle, and it's not a terribly sharp blade. It's less like a knife and more like a metal spatula, and it's great for cutting dough, scraping your work surface, and moving pieces of dough around on your table or countertop. It's also sometimes called a bench knife. Eric is using it to divide the dough.
Got our 6 little balls there. And now we're going to, the 6 little lumps. Now we're going to make them into balls, and we're going to make them as tight as we can. And the more evenly tight you can make the balls, the more likely it is that they'll puff up the way you want them to. So we're going to use a little flour, and we're going to use the same kind of motion we've used before where we pull the dough from the outside to the middle, but now it's on the tabletop instead of in the bowl. And when you get to the end, there's this tightening motion you can do by pushing the seam against the table and rotating and sort of tugging that dough up and inside. If you did this all day, you'd do one with each hand. You want to get a little traction with your dough on the table. So it's the sound of the dough sliding on the table.
This can be difficult to explain without seeing it, but he's basically holding the small piece of dough in his hand and pushing it slightly against the table while rotating the ball. He's tucking the bottom of the dough in and under and creating a nice taut surface across the top of the dough ball.
Running out of flour, so I put a little more down here.
It takes some practice to get this part down.
All right, there we got 6 nice little round balls of spelt dough to make pitas.
Normally, Eric would bake the pitas in their brick oven in the bakery.
Which is 7.5 feet deep and 5 feet wide, and it's a little bit cool right now because we have a weekly heating and baking cycle, and the oven just retains heat for the whole week. When we're finished heating it on Friday night, it's about 670, and at this point on a Tuesday in the middle of the day, it's at 365.
And that's too cool for our pita baking, so we took the dough on a short walk up the hill to the house where Eric and his family live. We'll bake the pitas in Eric's regular home oven. You might hear his youngest daughter, Ruth, in the background.
So we've got our balls of dough that have been resting for 30, 40 minutes, and I'm just taking them up off the wooden board, or if you might just have them sitting on your table, and put quite a bit of flour on them because you're going to roll them thin and you'll use up that flour quickly. And I start rolling with a rolling pin, and I'm rotating frequently so that I can try to keep the shape nice and round. Of course, if you have ovals, no problem. I'm just used to making things look round. And we want them to be about 6 to 8 inches across, I think.
And those don't seem to be springing back that much.
No, and part of that is the spelt, and because the spelt has that extensibility to it where it will stretch easily. And the rest. They had a nice rest after rounding them. If you try to roll them right away, they definitely would. Okay, we've got 2 pitas ready to go here.
After rolling out the pitas, he's placed them on what's called a pizza peel. It's one of those large wooden paddle-shaped tools with a long handle. It makes it a lot easier to slide things like pizza or pita bread into a hot oven.
I've preheated some fire bricks in the oven, and you can use a pizza stone the same way. I just happen to have fire bricks lying around from having built a brick oven, and I preheated them at about 500, and now I've turned the oven down to 450. Emulates a brick oven because in our wood-fired oven, the bricks are the heat source, so the air is always a little cooler than the bricks. So, here we go, sliding them on, closing the door.
And then on the peel, you had a little bit of rice flour, but you could
Yes.
use cornmeal or something, or you
can, but
recommend?
I really like rice flour on a peel. I think it's more effective than regular flour or cornmeal. And it also burns at a higher temperature than cornmeal and wheat.
So you don't get that smoky.
You don't get as much. Depends how hot your oven is. Our bread oven is about 670 when we start baking bread on Friday nights. So
Making pita is a fun thing to do with kids, or really with anyone who hasn't lost their sense of wonder. After a few minutes in the hot oven, they begin to puff up as the signature pocket fills with steam. With an oven light and a window, it happens right before your eyes, like a time-lapse video. But it's real time. It's quite magical.
all right, I'm going to crack open the door, and it looks like they started to inflate, turning into little balloons in there. So we're going to just make sure the bottoms get a little bit brown, which they're not yet, and then we'll flip them over.
This is a small flatbread, so it doesn't take long.
All right, I'm going to flip these pitas over. I think it's easier with a spatula than using the peel. There we go. I popped them too.
So now they're deflating. As always, we'll have this recipe available on our website, eartheats.org.
All right, so the first 2 pitas are done. We're taking them out, and I like to cool them on a plate with a towel. And so you make a stack of pitas, and as you're taking them out and making the stack bigger in between each batch, you bring the towel over it to cover it so that they stay moist and warm and soft.
And that is how you make pita. Each batch only takes a few minutes to bake. You can make a whole stack of them for dinner, and the extras keep nicely in a plastic bag for lunch the next day. The interest in local food systems, like farmers markets and direct farm-to-consumer sales, is on the rise. But the U.S. is more reliant on imported foods than ever before. Harvest Public Media's Mollie Ashford is kicking off a series of stories about local food by asking why our food travels so far to get to our plates.
It's nearing 100 degrees outside of Grand Island, Nebraska, but Billy Ward is decked out in a heavy coat and hat. Ward is the manager of one of 5 lineage cold storage facilities in Nebraska. He is walking me through a blast freezer, the coldest part of the 250,000 square foot warehouse.
In this facility, in this room right here, it's -20.
Almost all of the product stored at this particular facility is beef from nearby packing plants. It stays fresh here and then it's shipped around the world.
For instance, today we have 2 Ivory Coast going out. We have an Egypt. We have a Korea. We also do Vietnam.
Imported food also sits in warehouses just like this one before heading to U.S. grocery stores. Cold storage facilities and refrigerated trucks make up what's known as the cold chain. That's the network of temperature-controlled storage and transport services that keep perishable foods fresh. Industry groups estimate that up to 70% of all food consumed in the U.S. interacts with the cold chain. Sarah Stickler, the CEO of the Global Cold Chain Alliance, says most people don't think about how their food travels.
When we talk about kind of farm to table, whether that be protein, whether that be harvest, it's coming from a farm and it's going through a process. And most of the time that process includes cold storage.
The cold chain makes agricultural trade possible. And in recent years, the U.S. has become increasingly reliant on imported food, particularly fruits and vegetables. Luis Rivera, who researches North American trade at Texas A&M University, says that's led to a growing agricultural trade deficit. The U.S. Department of Agriculture estimates it could reach nearly $50 billion in the current fiscal year.
There's a reason why we have a trade deficit, because we consume a lot more products and we have more purchasing power than the neighboring country.
59% of fruits and 35% of fresh vegetables purchased by U.S. consumers are imported from other countries, according to the USDA. Ribera says the deficit is increasing because the products imported to the U.S. are worth more than what we export.
Fruits and vegetables are more expensive than cotton and sorghum and wheat, for example.
That's led some people to ask if the U.S. could become more self-reliant in growing its own produce. Chad Hart, an agronomist with Iowa State University, said the answer is sometimes an obvious no.
We're bringing in things like papayas and mango and, a lot of fruits and vegetables that we can't grow here.
Hart says the land and climate simply isn't suitable for growing things like bananas or coffee on a large scale. If farmers shifted priorities, they could hypothetically grow more specialty crops like berries or garlic or squash. But Hart says it's often more profitable to stick to 1 or 2 crops. And in the Midwest, that's typically corn and soybeans.
These crops are offering the most opportunities to gain markets and to be profitable for farmers.
In the produce section of this grocery store in Omaha, Nebraska, customers pick up products from all over the U.S. and the world. Cherries from Washington, apples from California, and tomatoes from Mexico. Hart says people in the U.S. have grown accustomed to getting the produce they want when they want it.
If U.S. consumers want bananas from Panama, well then, by God, grocery stores will figure out how to get bananas from Panama.
No matter the season or how far it had to travel. I'm Mollie Ashford, Harvest Public Media.
This story is part of Food Roots, a new series from Harvest Public Media about local food. Harvest is a collaboration of public media newsrooms in the Midwest and Great Plains. Find more at harvestpublicmedia.org. That's it for the show this week. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time. The Earth Eats team includes Eobon Binder, Alex Chambers, Toby Foster, Luann Johnson, Leo Paz, Samantha Schemenauer, and we partner with Harvest Public Media. Special thanks this week to Ann Schertz, Alan Schertz, Ross Gay, Mollie Douthit, and Eric Shedler. Earth Eats is produced and edited by me, Kate Young. Our theme music is composed by Aaron Toby and performed by Aaron and Matt Toby. Additional music on the show comes to us from Universal Production Music. Our executive producer is Eric Bolstridge.